Macthany Mactano here, the internet's busiest Christian music nerd. Before we hop into the review, just want to say there's going to be some stuff down in the description if you're interested in how the channel works and see what I'm reviewing next. If you want to request an album for me to review, all that good stuff is going to be down in the description. Today we are going to be looking at the album Jesus Freak by DC Talk. That is the album cover. So, what is this album? Well, Jesus Freak is the DC Talk is the most legendary, is one of the most legendary Christian albums. Probably the most legendary Christian album of the 90s. This album produced a massive hit. This was actually around even before the internet. This was popular before songs had the internet and before Spotify, before Pandora. This album, the song Jesus Freak, was a huge hit for DC Talk. It also had the song Between You and Me, which I heard was actually played on secular radio stations. Actually got some radio play on secular radio stations. This album was huge. It is today basically their biggest legacy is this album and the song Jesus Freak. That is their I can't think of the quintessence of DC Talk. If it could be summarized in one song, it would be the song Jesus Freak. And if the quintessence of them could be captured in one album, it would be this album. Which is interesting because this is actually a departure from all their albums before this. All their albums pre-Jesus Freak were actually rap albums. And this is actually like a grunge alternative rock album. This thing officially has 13 tracks on it, but 3 of those 13 tracks are not actually songs. The Mrs. Morgan is a skit where they're talking to like a woman who's just talking about the band and what she knows about the guys in the band. And then there's a reprise for the song Jesus Freak later in the album. And then it ends with Alas My Love, which is kind of like the ending to Supernatural. It's like poetry sketch by Kevin Max, except this one's way longer. It's 5 minutes long. So that takes up some of the album's runtime. But this album is nearly an hour long. These songs, the 10 actual songs on this album, are pretty long, or pretty lengthy songs. What Have We Become, I think, is over 6 minutes long. And other songs on this album are over 5 minutes, or just around 5 minutes. The music on this 90s alternative grunge album most of the time it isn't really aggressive and energetic. Most of it is really slow. It's slow burning, slow build-ups. But some of it does get upbeat. So Help Me God, of course, Jesus Freak, and the song Like It, Love It, Need It. All of those have moments, either they're really upbeat for the whole song, or they have moments where they get kind of energetic and upbeat. But still, they don't get like screaming guitar. They don't get really aggressive, besides Jesus Freak, parts of Jesus Freak. But, yeah. Most of this album is really slow-burning music that just kind of builds and builds and just slowly spreads across and all that kind of stuff. The lyrics on this album are pretty dark. This album really does get into some very dark, very serious on most of these songs. Colored People is about racism. There's some songs that delve into some really kind of heavy topics. Colored People is a very upbeat song with very light music and singing about racism. And it's ultimately a very hopeful tune, so it's kind of encouraging. Jesus Freak is about not caring to show people that you're a Jesus freak. It's a great message, not being afraid to be that weird guy, to be a Christian and to stand out for it and not to be kind of weird to other people. And not being ashamed of that, so that's kind of a good topic. What If I Stumble opens with a sample of a guy saying something like, the leading cause of atheism today is Christians. And it's Christians who, profess that they're a Christian, and then they live their lives in a terrible way, and they live their lives like anybody else, sinful and doing bad things, and stuff like that. And it's like, wow, like dang. That was a hard-hitting message. The leading cause of atheism is Christians? Man. But that's the song. Like It, Love It, Need It. This is a song about searching for meaning and pleasure in like rock and roll music and other stuff. It's kind of funny, but at the same time it's kind of serious, and it's got some serious lyrics. And ultimately it says, you gotta love Jesus. It literally says something like that. you gotta find, you just need some Jesus in your life. That's what it says. And it's kind of funny. It's kind of a funny song. At the same time, it's kind of serious, and yeah. And then you have songs like What Have I Become, which is the darkest song on this album. It's like 6-minute song, really slow, kind of haunting music, more haunting lyrics about people who profess they're Christians but are actually racist, who are actually abusing people, who are actually doing really bad things, and people who say they're Christians. And generally a song about evil in the world and all the bad things in the world. A lot of bad things that people will do. And it's saying, what have we become? Look at what we've turned into. And it is a very dark, harrowing song. This album, Jesus Freak, is very, very well written. There are some really bold lyrics, like I talked about. This Christian album goes places that a lot of Christian albums won't go. And it's great as a result. The lyrics are fantastic as a result. Really serious songs on this album with some really great lyrics, some really great messages, some really well-written lines. Like It, Love It, Need It rhymes One Night Stand with Superman in a very effective way. That's really funny. And that really, really sends a message across in a good way. And that's just an example. Jesus Freak has very iconic lines, especially the rapped portion by Toby Mac. The vocals on this album, I want to talk about this. Some of them are kind of really softly spoken. At first, that was really off-putting for me. My first listen to this album, I was like, because it sounds like they're kind of whispering, but that really does go along with the music, because the music is kind of quiet and kind of whispering and long and drawn out, and the vocals work very well with the lyrics and the music on this album. This album really does. The lyrics, this is a very, very well-written album, really does have great lyrics throughout. Some really bold, strong songs, especially What Have We Become. That is, I think, the best song on this thing lyrically. Then Like It, Love It, Need It, What If I Stumble, so many great songs with so many great, deep lyrics, really heavy messages, lyrics, just very well-written record. When I reviewed this thing on AllMusic, I gave it 3.5 stars, and I said that I didn't like the music. Well, coming back to this record, I would have to say musically this thing is impressive. The long, drawn-out music, the more upbeat music, it all is very well crafted. It's very well done with the instrumentation. Like I said, it works very well with the lyrics and the way the songs are sung, especially whenever Toby Mac sings like in Like It, Love It, Need It. He does a really good job on Jesus Freak, does a really good job. The crooning and the haunting echo on What Have We Become is really effective. It's honestly, vocally and musically, this thing is really impressive. These songs are really good, especially the more upbeat moments on this album. I'd say the one problem with this album is that some of it runs a little bit over long. I think the last song, Alas My Love, the non-song, the poetry, is kind of unnecessary. It doesn't need to be there. It's kind of weird, kind of meh. I think Mind's Eye doesn't have fantastic music. It could have been better. There's a cover of it by Family Force 5 that shows what the song could have been, and I think if it was more upbeat, more energetic, it would have been better. And just, yeah, some of these songs just run a little long. Some of these just kind of overstay their welcome just a little bit. But most of this album, very well written, really good lyrics, really good vocal performances, especially by Toby Mac, Kevin Max, Michael Tate, all do a great job. And then music is really good on most of these songs. Really impressive, long, drawn out, kind of haunting, kind of upbeat, different. They experiment with different sounds, different speeds, and almost all of it works very well. I'm going to give this album a 4.25 out of 5. What did you think of this album? What do you think of DC Talk? What do you think of Christian music in general? Is Christian music good? Is it bad? Should Christian music go back to the time where we were rhyming One Night Stand with Superman? Should we go back to that time? And talking about how some people who claim to be Christians are doing really bad, evil things and abusing other people. Should we get back to those times? Of course we should. Should we go back to the time where Christian music was talking about racism? Of course we should. Should we go back to the time where we're talking about the leading cause of atheism is Christianity. It all sounds very angsty. It all sounds controversial. It all sounds really bold and brash. But yes, we should. We should. Our Christian music. Actually, oh man, great example of this. 10th Avenue North did an album, The Things We've Been Afraid to Say. Oh, it was so. The lyrics were so. It was like this. The lyrics are really bold, really kind of edgy for Christian music. Stuff that, not like with cursing, but like stuff that, like really hard topics, talking about really bad stuff. And yeah, so that's all I have to say about that. Have a good rest of your day.